This is the Late Round Podcast with your host, JJ Zacharisa.
What's up, everyone? It's JJ Zacharisa, the editor-in-chief at FanDuel and at NumberFire.com, and this is episode 569 of the Late Round Podcast, so many shows that are part of the FanDuel Podcast Network. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, football fans, FanDuel is giving you the opportunity to bet on Week 8 of the NFL season. All you have to do is go to sportsbook.fanduel.com or download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, place a 3 or more leg same-game parlay wager with cash on any Week 8 NFL game, and if your bet loses, you get a refund and site credit with a max refund of $10. Bet on Week 8 of the NFL season with FanDuel by heading over to FanDuel Sportsbook today and placing a risk-free NFL same-game parlay. Must be 21 years or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Same game parlay available for multiple sports in all states on mobile/web. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. In Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. For confidential help in Michigan, call 1-800-270-7117. In Tennessee, call the Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. In West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. Jalen Hurts is the only quarterback in fantasy football who scored at least 20 standard fantasy points in every game this year. He scored no fewer than 20.5 points, and he's been a top 12 quarterback every single week. No other quarterback has scored 17 or more fantasy points in every game. Hurts has hit 20.5 in every game. He's showing us why rushing at the position matters. It's not everything. Quarterbacks can be great in fantasy without the rushing component. But quarterbacks don't need to be elite passers to be elite fantasy quarterbacks if they can do what Hurts does with his legs. On the season, only Lamar Jackson has more rushing yards, and Hurts is tied with Sam Darnold for the league lead in rushing touchdowns at quarterback. Tom Brady is pacing to have one of the highest touchdown totals of his career, if not the highest, especially with 17 games. A lot of that is being fueled by how the Buccaneers are calling plays close to the goal line, or rather, how many plays they're getting at the goal line. If you've watched any Tampa Bay games, especially this past week, then you know this just by watching. But here's some data for you. On the season, Tom Brady has 9 passing touchdowns from within the opponent's 5-yard line. That's 3 more than any other quarterback. Unsurprisingly, no team has thrown the ball more frequently from that area of the field. But I should note that Tampa Bay is not the leader in pass rate at the goal line, not even close. They're actually just inside the top half of the league in pass rate there. The Bucs are just there all the time because the offense is so good. So they're able to get volume both through the air and on the ground. It's allowed Tom Brady to maintain his high-end fantasy relevancy. And it's allowed Leonard Fournette to be a pleasant RB1 surprise. The next trend is one that was tweeted by NFL Network's Andrew Siciliano. The Bears have failed to throw for 200 or more net passing yards, that includes sacks. They haven't done that in a single game this year. They're the first team since the 2008 Titans to go the first 7 or more games without a 200-plus yard passing game. Now, I dug into this a little bit more. Chicago's quarterbacks have produced half the number of passing yards this year as Rams quarterbacks. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, Raiders, and Buccaneers all have more than double the number of quarterback passing yards than the Bears have. It's honestly depressing. Speaking of depressing, let's talk about the Jets. They haven't been great for fantasy this year, but Corey Davis has had some spiked weeks, and a lot of that is because of touchdowns. On the season, Davis has 4 touchdowns. The Jets have 5 total passing touchdowns as a team. That 80% touchdown share is the highest in the league. Since 2011, the highest wide receiver touchdown share came from Mike Evans in 2014. That's when he scored 12 of Tampa Bay's 21 passing touchdowns. So chances are Davis won't be able to maintain this. What needs to happen in order for Davis to score touchdowns is that the Jets just need to throw more touchdowns in general. Jonathan Taylor has been a top 10 running back in fantasy football in each of the last 4 weeks. He's also had a single game low target share of just 9.4% during this time. And he's averaging an 11% target share per game during this stretch. Now, for some context, when you compare that to the first 3 games, Taylor failed to hit a 10% share in 2 of his first 3. And we've seen a shift in how the Colts are using him. According to Pro Football Focus, from weeks 1 to 3, Nyheim Hines ran 20 more routes than Jonathan Taylor did. From weeks 4 through 7, Taylor's run 58 routes, Nyheim Hines has run 30. There's a very simple reason as to why this is happening. Indianapolis is winning. They started the season 0-3, and that's when they utilized Nyheim Hines more in that third down role. They're 3-1 over their last 4, but that one loss was that overtime loss to Baltimore where they led for a lot of the game. That's allowed Jonathan Taylor to be more involved in this offense. The better the Colts play, the better Jonathan Taylor will be in fantasy football. Chase Edmonds was averaging almost 15 PPR points per game across the first 4 weeks of the season. Over his last 3 games, he scored 4.4, 8, and 10 fantasy points. If you have Edmonds, I'd only be moderately concerned about this change in output. His target share per game has fallen by about 4 percentage points out of that split, and his running back rush share is a little bit skewed because of an injury. The bigger thing with Edmonds is that he's doing what we projected him to do. This is basically his median outcome. There was a slight chance that Edmonds would have ended up being the goal line back this year. But what was projected to happen, which was James Conner playing that role, that's happened. And it doesn't help Edmonds that the Cardinals have been so good. So they're not in hurry-up mode very often. But Edmonds still doesn't have a touchdown this year. That should change eventually, even if he's not seeing goal line work. In Brandon Ayuk's 12 games played last year, and remember, he was a rookie, but in his 12 games played last year, he had a target share of 17% or more 8 times. So 8 of 12 games, he had a target share at or above 17%. He's played 6 games this year, and his highest target share in a game has been 15.8%. This probably doesn't need to be said, but you can't come close to trusting Brandon Ayuk in fantasy football. This next trend exists just to point out the silliness of Davante Adams' workload. In Week 7, Adams had his lowest target share of the season with a 20.6% share, which is still totally fine, but it's low for Davante Adams. Now, I went back and I looked at his regular season game logs, and in games where he didn't get injured, he hasn't had a single game target share below 20% since Week 3 of 2019. I mean, think about what that means. That's absolutely ridiculous. So I had to share it. The Rams really haven't been targeting their running backs in the passing game over the last few seasons. Sean McVay got to LA in 2017. That year, the Rams were 20th in running back target share. The next year, they ranked 23rd. In 2019, they were dead last. Last year, they were 30th. Now, this season, they're last in the league with an 11.3% running back target share. Darrell Henderson just had his first game where he finished outside the top 20 in weekly running back scoring in PPR formats. And the good news is that he's the one who's seeing a huge backfield share in that offense. So that low team running back target share is less of a deal for Darrell Henderson. He's still averaging a 10.5% target share per game. So as long as he keeps this bell cow roll, he should be absolutely fine. The last trend this week is about DeAndre Hopkins. If you recall, he was a sell candidate on last week's 15 transaction show, and he ended up scoring a touchdown in Week 7. On the season, Hopkins is now averaging a touchdown per game, and he's averaging a touchdown on every 6.7 targets. For some context, that's the best mark in the league among relevant wide receivers. And his season high within that statistic, that came back in 2017. That season, he averaged a touchdown on every 13.4 targets. So needless to say, Hopkins is scoring unlike any other season of his NFL career. That's going to do it for today's show. Thanks to all of you for listening. If you've yet subscribed to the Late Round Podcast, make sure you are by searching for it pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter @LateRoundQB. Thanks, everyone. I'll talk to you tomorrow.